everybody. Welcome to our episode tonight. We are going to be talking with Brad.Brown from Town Bank. He is one of our local partner lenders in Wilmington, and we have Stephanie Ferris, one of our buyer specialists, with us. And tonight we're going to be just talking about some of the things that we're seeing in the marketplace in terms of if you're a new buyer and looking to potentially purchase a home, whether it's a month from now, a year from now. We just want to talk about a few things that you guys probably want to know as you're thinking about that process. And so we want to make sure that you're good and prepared for anything that comes up along the way. So with that, just going to kind of jump in here. Stephanie, just, right now we're dealing with, we're December 2020, and we've got a lot of problems with buyers not being able to find houses. I mean, inventory is at all-time lows. And so we have a lot of buyers sitting on the sidelines looking for properties. And what we're running into is when properties do hit the market, there's a pretty good chance that our buyers are having to compete with other buyers. So, we always want to make sure that they're most prepared to put in the best offer that they can. But, one of the things, talking about inventory being so low right now, how would you advise, buyers to basically search for homes right now, since there's such a scarcity right now, so that they can really tune in on what they want to find?
So honestly, it's really about doing your homework in advance. It's talking to your local lender. Of course, I recommend Brad. But it's finding out what your actual price point is. Inventory is so low because interest rates are so low. Everybody's trying to buy and take advantage of these really low rates. So we got to make sure that you are searching in the right price points. And when you're ready, make sure that you are ready with your pre-approval letter in hand. So second that comes on the market, we can go out, take a look. And if it's the house for you, we can be putting in our strong offer with pre-approval in hand.
Yeah, so now you mentioned pre-approval there. So Brad, just turning to you along those lines. For somebody that hasn't been through this process before, and is not really sure what to do. I mean, how quickly can you theoretically get somebody, pre-approved? Let's just say that they're looking online and they just see that house. I mean, hopefully they've gotten it in advance, but as we all know, it doesn't always happen in the perfect way. But for somebody that doesn't want to miss out, I mean, how, in theory, how quickly can you get somebody that pre-approval letter that they're looking for?
It's typically not a very hard or time-consuming process for the most part. I think Stephanie and I have had some situations where it's been just a few hours. Your buyers that are straight salaried, W-2 workers, a few pay stubs, a few bank statements, pull the credit, we're going to call it a day. Your individuals that are self-employed, as long as we can get some tax returns pretty quick and we can plug through that income, then we can turn that one out pretty quick as well. I would say that on average, though, I would never expect it to be more than a day to get your clients ready to go and actively shop.
Okay, that sounds good. And, and Stephanie, with homes moving so quick, we've got buyers obviously in different stages of the process and things like that. But with homes moving so quickly, what does the buyer need to do, in relation to you as the agent, to be ready to pull the trigger and make that offer so that you guys don't miss out and, and you have the best chance to get that contract?
I mean, it's really knowing what you're looking for in a house. That way we can really narrow down and hone in. And I had a buyer, we just went under contract yesterday. We knew exactly the area that she was looking for. So when something popped on the market that had the correct number of bedrooms and bathrooms, we were out there to see it within a couple hours. And we had our strong offer in the next morning, and we were lucky enough to get her under contract. Thank you so much, Brad, for getting us the pre-approval for that one. So it's really knowing what you're looking for. That way, when something comes on the market, you're ready to move forward.
Gotcha. And so, here we are, 2020. We're, obviously we're doing a Zoom meeting right now. And there's a lot of things that people have access to, on their computer, on their phones, that are kind of push the easy button. And so, one of the things that, we see a lot of time is that buyer that's tempted to just go on a site, go online and push a couple buttons and see if they can get pre-approved for a mortgage. And that all sounds great, but Brad, I mean, I know some of the pitfalls that we deal with that. But what would you tell that person that's thinking about doing that? Like, why should they call you, to make sure they get pre-approved rather than just kind of going online and finding one of these, apps or whatever that maybe might tell them in 5 minutes that they're pre-approved for a loan. I mean, not everybody lives in the world that we live in. So maybe kind of unpack that for us and tell them what the benefit is for them to reach out to you so that we don't have any issues later in the process.
Yeah. So for me, the big thing is going to be a combination of service and reputation. I don't feel like you're going to get the service that you deserve from necessarily an internet lender who doesn't really care so much that you're just another number to them as you would to somebody who's local into the market or familiar with the market rather. When it comes to reputation, I don't mean necessarily just the company reputation, but I'm talking about like my personal reputation. So if you think about the fact that I'm going to bump into past clients at the grocery store and at Target and at the ball field and at the beach, and I want them to continually come back to me and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I don't want to be in a position where I'm trying to run from my previous clients because of a bad situation. And I have had people say that has been the case with them, but I don't ever want to be embarrassed about what happens and what goes down. I want to make sure that they're constantly getting sound advice and that I'm proud to say that this is what I do. Yeah, I did that loan. What of it? We crushed it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that, people don't always, kind of think about when they're on the computer and going through that kind of process, with just any old lender is that, most of those are just, these big operations that, the file gets passed from one person to the next. And through that process, like you never know who you're supposed to call. You never know exactly who you're connected to. So I think there are some challenges there. Yeah, maybe it's easy on the front end, but there are some challenges on the back end. Whereas, if they're calling you if they have a question or if we run into an issue, I mean, we're coming to Brad. We know we've got somebody local that we can count on that, we need to troubleshoot a problem and get through a hurdle. That's the big advantage there in dealing with somebody local who knows the market and knows what we're dealing with. And the other thing that, I know we're seeing it across the team and Brad, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, is that we've got, appraisal, our prices, our values are going up very quickly in this market. And, it's been a challenge. I think I've dealt with more appraisal issues in the last 3 months than I have in the last 3 years. And I think that's part of it, but when you're dealing with somebody that's not local and they don't have a trusted group of appraisers, a lot of times they're just bidding out these appraisers to the lowest person. And, you don't necessarily, if you have an appraisal issue, you're not necessarily going to be able to go in and have a chance to challenge that and do some things that maybe we can do with a local lender that, frankly, a lot of buyers, if we have an appraisal come in $10,000 short, I mean, not a lot of buyers I know that we're dealing with that have an extra $10,000 to sit around. So when we have that local appraiser and the local lender, there's a better chance for us to troubleshoot that and see if we can't get through that without costing our clients more money. And so, I don't know if you want to speak on that or if that's something you guys are seeing. I know we're certainly seeing that on a regular basis. So, so what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely right now, there is a delay in getting the appraisals in. So it's interesting that we're sort of landing on this subject right now because I did have a situation develop on Friday. I'll preface all this by saying, we're human and stuff happens from time to time. So I do have a new construction situation. Stephanie, this is not yours. Or one of but and normally I will, tell my agents, give me a heads up and we can order the appraisal up front. You don't want to get it too early. And out of nowhere, we fast forward and boom, it's time for final inspection. So we put off the request for the final inspection. Well, the appraiser comes back on Friday afternoon and he says, guys, I don't even have the initial appraisal on this one and I can't get out there till next Friday. Pump the brakes a little bit because this one's closing on Thursday. We can't not push this thing back to Friday. So through sort of some counsel and pulling some strings, I called one of the appraisers directly on our desk and said, hey, this is my situation. any chance you can squeeze this in and get it back before Tuesday? He said, actually, I'll be in that neighborhood on Saturday. Sure thing. And the deal is done. We'll be closing on Thursday, just like scheduled. But that, I think, speaks to the network of choosing local individuals that are going to work with you, that are going to, come up with problems, that have contacts that can help resolve issues that may come up, because let's admit it, they're going to come up, even with the best individuals around. Things come up that just are not expected. So it is important to have that close network of individuals that you can call on.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, obviously you're supporting local business, you guys give back, we give back to the community, where our clients are living in. So, so it makes sense to do that all the way around. It's a benefit to them, and, they are supporting the community. So, so you mentioned new construction. So Stephanie, let's talk about new construction for a second, because, it's definitely, one of the things that buyers like to do, and they certainly should do this, is, they like to go around and drive through the new construction neighborhoods, and maybe they stop in at, the model home, walk in. And so, for the buyer out there that doesn't really, understand how all that works, what would you say to them in terms of, before you go walk into the model home and start talking to somebody, what should you know about that situation, and what would you advise them to do in that scenario?
Absolutely. I feel like I'm the queen of new construction right now. There's so many wonderful new construction neighborhoods from all of our amazing local builders. But things to keep in mind when you're going to go check out the new construction neighborhoods: the sales rep works for the builder. So it's best not to go in there and start gabbing about how much money you can spend and when you're looking to move, and all these details that they can potentially use against you when you're putting an offer in on a house. It's also good to keep in mind that usually their model homes are fully loaded. There are usually a lot of upgrades in there. So you got to make sure to go in there with an open mind. Some of them keep a lot of those features standard, but they want to show you all the bells and whistles in that model home. So no, you may not get everything on your list. It may cost you a little bit more, but they want to show you everything. So try not to completely fall in love with every little detail in there, because they definitely want you to pay for all of those fabulous features you're falling in love with.
Yeah, they definitely do that by design. So,
Oh, they got me. It works.
exactly. So yeah, I would say, whether you're working with us or somebody else, when you go into that new model home, definitely just let them know that, hey, I have an agent, I'm just checking out the place, getting information. But, you can tell them Stephanie Ferris with the Chris Luther team is my agent, whether you talk to Stephanie or not, just at least to let them know that, hey, don't start, turning into a vulture yet. Just, let's just get some information at this point. We're kind of exploring things, but,
and chances are I probably know half the information about that neighborhood. So I can probably give them all the details before they even go. I've got a stack of floor plans for like 20 different neighborhoods sitting in my living room.
Yeah. And, one of the other things that we want to make sure everybody knows, is when you're dealing with like our team or another agent, as your buyer's agent, we're working on your behalf. That person, like Stephanie said, is working for the builder. Their interest is in serving the builder, not you. Yes, they want to sell you a home, but their responsibility is to that builder. And so, a lot of people don't know there are some things that we can negotiate. Now, right now, price is pretty much non-existent in terms of negotiation, with new builders. And that's mainly because the inventory is so low and we're in a seller's market. So, if the market was different, that may be a different scenario. But there are other ways that we can do negotiations where the builders can still protect their prices, because that's ultimately what they want to do, is make sure, to protect their pricing and so that they can go into phase pricing things as they develop, what they're working on in the community. But, things like closing costs and maybe fixing homes, refrigerators, things like that. So those are some things that, as your agent, that's some of the things that we're pushing for to try and help limit the things that later down the road, you guys might have to, as a buyer, pull out of pocket. And so that's kind of a perfect segue to my next question to Brad is, we talked about closing costs and things like that. And so I know, a lot of times with first time home buyers, one of their biggest concerns is how much money out of pocket at a closing, am I going to have to spend? And so, and they don't always necessarily understand that, some of it depends on the type of loan, of course, but, we have some creative ways to try and limit their out of pockets and things like that. So I didn't know if you wanted to maybe touch on that, whether it's new construction or not, just some of the ways that we can kind of, work on their behalf to try and get them in the house without pulling out as much money, as they need, as they have to. We can try to limit that.
Yeah, and so not to beat a dead horse, but we'll bring up the fact of being local again. With these first timers, I love when I get the opportunity to bring them into the office and sit down and go over these options like this is the rate, these are your costs, break it down line by line. But if we do it this way, this is how it affects your cost a little bit. And sometimes, and forgive me if I ever do this, I might come across as stepping on the agent's toes when I talk about at that hot price point, maybe you do need to increase your sales price a little bit and ask for cost on top of that. And I explain how that is a difference for the buyer versus going in at list and asking for cost. Like they need to understand how that's affecting the seller. I think I said buyer just a moment ago, but they need to understand how that's affecting the seller when they play with the seller paid closing costs, credits, or however you want to label it. It impacts everybody. So if you can't get them paid for by the seller, and loan programs, by the way, do have limits in how much you can receive percentage wise, then we can talk about it from a lender's perspective and say, this is your rate at what we call a par price, meaning you just pay your basic cost, or I can give you this rate and we'll kick in this many thousands of dollars. And here's how it affects your monthly payment. It's very little, and here's what it's going to mean for you in the long run. So we lay it all out there for them. Let them pick and choose. Well, it's a la carte, what works for them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, because it's, not only that, but then we can go back and we can get, some of the seller contributions, things like that. So a combination of some of that may save them thousands of dollars out of their pocket. I mean, obviously, depending on the loan, they may have to bring a minimum of amount, but we may be able to just limit them just to that if we can get a contribution from either a rate credit or seller credit combination to try and make that work and get them in there. Because I think the misconception a lot of buyers that haven't been through the process is that, oh, I've got to have X number of dollars to do that, and there's actually situations where maybe it's a USDA or something like that we can get you with no money out of pocket. I mean, so these are the things that as you guys as buyers, are thinking through. That's why you need to call Stephanie, call Brad, and talk to them about your situation and what you're capable of. And then that way we can kind of sit there and really evaluate what, properties we might get you in that fit your needs and get, and without, wiping out your savings or whatever, trying to do it with your goals. So yeah, that's a great point, but we definitely, want to keep that in mind while we're, looking at houses and stuff, trying to fit it into what your needs are. So Stephanie, just talking on the buyer side here, in the market right now, obviously, we talked about being in a seller's market, and it's very competitive out there with low inventory, and there's a lot of buyers naturally trying to get in the market because the rates are so good, and the affordability of what they could potentially get is so much greater than maybe a year ago or even past that. But, what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing buyers make right now in the process, whether it's, trying to get it pre-approved or mistakes that they're making when they are wanting to put in an offer, things like that? What are you seeing right now that you would caution somebody of like, okay, if this is your mindset, we might want to say, let's reevaluate this, because, somebody I once know always told me, said, when you're with a buyer and they want to tell you something that you really know is probably not a great idea, maybe you pull out that line, okay, do you want to buy a house today or you want to learn a lesson? And so, I always kind of remind myself, but, what are some of those things that you're seeing your buyers do that we want to make sure that we educate our buyers and say, yeah, that sounds good, but here's why maybe that's not a great idea to do. So what are you seeing out there with your buyers right now?
Couple mistakes I've been seeing. I don't know why everybody thinks it's so scary to talk to a lender. I promise Brad does not bite. You got to make sure that that you're shopping in your pre-approved amount. It doesn't help you to fall in love with a $350,000 house if your budget turns out to be $250, because nothing I show you at $250 is going to match a $350,000 house, no matter what I do. So you got to make sure you're shopping within your budget so you don't fall in love with something you can't quite get. And you got to keep in mind that it is really a seller's market right now. So going in with the idea of, oh, we'll come in, we'll offer 10 under, and then expect a counter back, and oh, we'll meet in the middle somewhere. That dance just really isn't happening right now. So if you love the house and we run the comps and feel like it's priced correctly, then you're either going to try to get a deal or you're trying to get a house. So if you really love that house, you need to go into it with your best foot forward, knowing there's probably going to be several other people right behind you waiting to fill out their paperwork to put in an offer as well. So you want yours to be best foot forward right from the beginning, and don't risk losing out on the house because you were trying to save a couple $1,000s, which really is not going to make a big difference on your monthly payments, the long term of your loan. So $2,000 could be the difference between you getting the house or not, when really it's not that big of a monthly payment change.
Yeah, and I know one of the things, that all of our agents try and do is that, with it being such a competitive market, yeah, obviously we want to make sure we've got them ready to go, locked and loaded with a pre-approval, find the house they want. We want to come in with a strong offer. But one of the things that we do to help you guys is, we're going to reach out to that listing agent. We're going to say, what's important to the seller, and every seller is different. So some of them may say, I want somebody that I know 100% is going to close, and it's not going to be nitpicky on the, inspection report, or, maybe price is the most important thing, or maybe I need somebody that can close in 3 weeks, or maybe I need somebody that can't close. I need to stay in the house for the next 60 days. There's a lot of variables out there from seller to seller. And so, we don't want to just assume. So, maybe we're thinking about closing in 30 days, but if we call that listing agent and says, well, they'd really like to stay in for the next 60 days, and our buyer doesn't necessarily have to be in the next 30 days. Okay, well, that's great. Let's do a contract for 60 days that matches up with the timeline. And you'd be amazed at just finding out those little things and trying to position your offer to be in favor of the seller, with some of those things that really don't matter to our buyer. Those are some of the things that when you're competing really make a difference. And so, those are things just to keep in mind as a buyer. But we're certainly here to coach you through that process and make sure that we're putting you in the best position that we can to be in that market. I mean, some of the other stuff is, what type of loan are you using? And Brad, I'll kind of kick this back to you. What right now in this market are you seeing the majority of loan product look like? I mean, are we still seeing a lot of FHA, USDA? Or are we seeing more conventional, 3 to 5%? I mean, what are you kind of seeing in the marketplace right now?
I'm definitely, for fear of saying the wrong thing, that somebody doesn't understand what I'm talking about, but I'm definitely seeing more of the conforming transactions with the smaller down payments at like 3 to 5% down. I get a little bit of USDA here and there, a little bit of FHA, very little VA around. There's not a big military presence here, but we do have those. And an equal share of jumbo loans as well. But the bulk of my business, I'll speak, is just the conventional side. Minimum down payment, it's either going to be small down payment, 3 to 5%, or they've got the full 20% down.
And so that's something to think about. Obviously, we have a lot of buyers that are more in the 3 to 5% down category. I mean, that seems to be what we see for the most part, particularly in a first-time home buyer. But if you do have the ability to put down 20%, that's great. It's going to obviously get you out of a PMI status. But the other thing is that if you're competing with offers and you're a 20% down buyer versus 2 or 3 others that are maybe 3 to 5%. You're going to look on paper like a stronger buyer, and you may be able to get, that may be an advantage for you. So doesn't mean that we're requesting you guys go out and, do 20% just because we said that. But, that's just something to keep in mind. If you have the ability to do that, that may put you in a stronger position. And obviously it's going to lower your monthly payment as well. So, so those are just some things that, we take into consideration in terms of, when we're presenting an offer, we want to make you look as good as we can. So, So, and again, Brad's going to kind of walk you through, if you're not sure what type of loan, obviously Brad will kind of walk you through, okay, here's the advantages of this versus this, and, lay all that on paper so that you can select what you're most comfortable with. And that's the ultimate goal for us, to make sure that we've got you in something that you're okay with, and that you can feel comfortable that you can meet your needs every month with the house, and not be strapped and in a tough spot. Stephanie, let's talk about kind of a little bit more towards once you've got a contract. So for a buyer that's never bought a home before, once they've gotten the pre-approval, they found the house that they want, we've got them under contract. Okay, great. But obviously the journey's not over. So what would you tell, and whether from a mindset or kind of walking us through the main things that we have to do, what do you do to kind of prepare your buyers for that next step, saying, okay, now we've got another 20 days of due diligence or whatever that is, here's what's going to happen, and here's what we need to keep in mind so that this doesn't get off the rails. We need to kind of stay focused towards the closing. So how would you kind of characterize that process?
Yep. So once we actually get a contract, yay, congratulations. But now all the fun stuff begins. We got to get a home inspector in there as soon as possible. We're working with the lender, got to let them know, and so we can get an appraiser out there, because like Brad said, it's taking a little bit longer to get appraisers out to the house. So getting all of your inspections done right away. That way, if there are any issues, we're not waiting till the last second to try to put in a request for any repairs from the seller or any kind of credit. So it's a lot of inspections. It's really nothing crazy. It's pretty simple process. Your agent, hopefully me, or Chris, is handling most of that for you. But it's really not as intimidating as it sounds. Once you're under contract, you write your due diligence or earnest money checks, whatever was negotiated on your contract. Your agent picks them up and takes them where they need to go. We get your inspections, and if there's nothing wrong, then it's wait until the attorney and we get to close, and you get to move into your new house.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say, the reason, we talk so much about inspections, but inspections are really the number one, reason that a deal falls apart. And it's not always because the house is falling apart. It's because, it is a process sometimes, managing expectations of what should be fixed and what should be not fixed. And so obviously you got seller on one side and you got buyer, and they both got differing opinions. And there's a lot of different ways to get creative and do things. But, we always try and tell our buyers to make sure that they're being reasonable. Always try and think of, put yourself in the other shoes. But you're always going to have cosmetic stuff wrong with the house. I mean, you're going to have that in a new construction. I mean, it's funny that a lot of times our new construction inspection reports sometimes are longer than our houses that are 60 to 70 years old. It is what it is. But, I would just caution everybody, what we try and do is we try and stick to kind of those main things, your structural integrity of the house, safety, which is like electrical, water intrusion, things like that are really towards the foundation and structure of the house, that are going to make sure that the longevity of that house is for years to come is in a good place. So, scratches on the floor and just little nitpicky stuff like that, it's best to kind of, yes, you can ask for it, but our experience is that you're not going to get very far with some of that. If you stick to what's really important on the house, there's a much better chance for us to get that through, because at the end of the day, you can line up 10 houses and you're going to get things wrong with every house that you have. So, there is no perfect house out there. So that's kind of my point there. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, if you go in with that expectation that it's a perfect house, you're going to be disappointed. So, want to go to it with an open mind. Certainly we want to make sure the house is in good shape and things like that. And these reports are very detailed. And that's part of it, is because we get these 60, 70 page reports that, for somebody that's never seen one, they go, oh my God, what is the house falling down? And no, it's not. But, that's an inspector's job, is to go through every square inch of that home and just notate things. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on there. So we just kind of want to make sure that you guys are prepared to see that.
Yep. Even a good home inspection report will still usually be 40 pages because there's things that they just have to write down that, yes, that was accurate. Yes, I looked at this. So even if the house is in great conditions, you're still probably looking at a good 40 pages.
Absolutely. So, and again, we're here to coach you through that. We've got a great team and got great inspectors in our local area that do a great job, and so we work with them all the time. And so it can be a very smooth process. Just got to kind of work through it. But so getting kind of wrapped up here. But Brad, I know one of the most common questions that we get. And it may be a different answer now versus a year ago with all the COVID stuff going out, and hopefully that's coming to an end soon. I know we're all ready to kind of get back out and do what we want to do outside and everything. But, I'd say the common question that we get is, what kind of credit score do I need? I mean, like for that person that's like worried about their credit score, and I'd say that's probably 50% of the people that kind of come to us first, like, I don't really know if I can even buy a house because I'm not sure about where my credit is. And I know it's not a cut and dry answer, but I guess to put it as easy as we can, I mean, is there kind of a low threshold we're saying, okay, if you're like right here, give me a call and let's have a conversation. But if you're below this, kind of get it to this threshold before we really have a conversation. Is that kind of the best way to characterize probably what they need to do? I mean, or you want to kind of tell us what that looks like?
That might be the best thing to do for other lenders. We're going to be just a little bit different. In general, right now, you can expect minimum credit scores of about 640 across the board, where prior to COVID and the pandemic, we were seeing credit scores all the way down to 600 on certain programs. Other companies could go to maybe 580, but get ready, you're going to pay for that rate. But I don't ever want to turn anybody away. We're talking to people. Stephanie has witnessed this firsthand, that when we pull credit, if it's not where it needs to be, then I'm going to send that over to my credit enhancement desk, who usually comes back pretty quickly, like 2 to 3 business days, with a plan and says, if your client will do this, this, and this is his score of X in Y number of months. I mean, it could be anywhere from an immediate change once we get them rescored to up to 2 years out. So they've got a realistic timeline of exactly what it is they can expect with purchasing their first home, their second home, or whatever the case might be. I don't ever want anybody to think that this is just a credit enhancement program, though, for someone who does not have great credit and doesn't qualify. You can have somebody that has very average credit at, say, a 700 score, but do they realize that 700 could be impacting their interest rate by 1/4 to 1/8 of a point? So let's get those folks in credit enhancement as well and say, look, when they find a contract, we want them at 740 so they get best pricing. What's that going to take? And you'd be amazed at some of the little tiny steps that individuals can take to save literally thousands of dollars on an annual basis. So
Yeah,
we're not going to turn them away.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point. I mean, yeah, it's one thing to be not sure if you can qualify, but I think some buyers don't know whether they're a first time or not. They're not really sure what determines their rate. Like you said, that 740 is kind of where they need to be to get that upper tier and best rate. So, that's something that, if they're close to that, maybe they reach out to you before they're ready to pull the trigger and say, hey, I know I'm pretty close to that. Can you run this through your credit simulator and see, how I can get it there so that I can get that best, credit score and really save, on the lower end? Because I mean, what kind of scores are you seeing on the upper end right now? I mean, credit rates right now. I mean, we're getting, obviously pretty low twos right now in the market, aren't we? I mean, what are you seeing across your desk on a weekly basis?
A whole lot of our government loans are in that, lowish 2 range. I just liked a girl today, just a little over 2.5, that wasn't a government loan. And so that's really good as well. So, I mean, we are under 3 all day long.
Yeah. Which, for anybody listening out there, the reason, obviously having a rate's great for you to get your payment down, but it gives you more affordability in a house. So, I mean, 2.5% versus 4% that you may have gotten a year and a half ago. I mean, that could be $50,000, $60,000 plus more of a house that you can qualify. So what it means is now that lower your rate is, the more house that you can get into. And that's very important to a lot of people right now that are finding that, hey, I might be working from home a lot now. And so I want to make sure that I have that perfect house, and maybe I have that bigger house with the room that I can do that. And so, right now with these rates, it's given the people, out there a lot more ability to do that. And so obviously none of us can predict the future, but if that's what your situation is right now, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at what that looks like for you now, because who knows, 6 months, to a year, these rates, these exact rates may not be available, and it may bring you down a price notch on what you can afford. So it's definitely a great time, even though inventory is low. The buyer atmosphere and playing field for you guys to really get affordability in a house is much better. And obviously with prices going up, that helps, kind of combat that. But, well, guys, we're kind of wrapping up here. I mean, has anybody got anything that I didn't ask that maybe you want to kind of throw in there for things that you're seeing right now that buyers need to be aware of?
I mean, it really comes down to choosing your right team. I mean, Brad's got another closing for me. We're closing next week. Buyer got locked in at 2.25%. That makes such a big difference over the life of that loan and the affordability of their monthly payments. So choose your team, pick somebody who's going to help lock you in at the lowest rate you can possibly get, and have a smooth transition to closing.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Like Stephanie said, you're not just hiring Stephanie, you're not just hiring myself, you're hiring our entire team. So, whether it's from your lender or whatever, but we have in-house staff, transaction coordinator, we have all that wrapped up. And the reason we do that is because, we definitely believe in white glove service and making sure that everything is done correctly. And, yes, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but we have a really great team to make sure that things don't fall through the cracks. If there's a potential, thing that we need to get in front of, whether it's a problem with the loan or a problem with the house, things like that, we've got an entire team kind of ready to jump in and get that done. And because, I would say 50% of our day, and Brad, you're probably the same way, is just, kind of problem solving. Trying to figure out, everything at the front end is great. Okay, this is what it looks like on paper. But as we go through the process, there's always things that come up. And so we're always trying to have to kind of navigate the waters and make sure that we get to the closing. And having that team aspect is really key for our clients. And I know they appreciate that. But so as we wrap up, Brad, if buyers out there that are listening have any questions, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
By phone is a great way. Text or call, I don't mind. And that is 910-231-1411. And by online, my website's just www.brad.Brown.com. The not so subtlety of that message there. Or subtlety of the message. Email is brad.Brown@townbankmortgage.com, TOWNE. But whatever it takes to help your clients out, we'll do it.
Okay. And Stephanie, if somebody wants to start searching for houses and kind of get in your ecosystem, what's obviously the best place for them to search houses for, first and foremost, but then if they want to give you a call or email, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, the best place to start searching, another not so subtle link, is buywithstephanie.com. Or I always have my phone on me, got my nice Apple Watch, so I'm literally always plugged in. My number is 910-338-9104, or my email, stephanie@chrisluther.com. Usually I can get back to everybody within 30 minutes, as long as it's before 8 o'clock.
Sounds good. Well, guys, I appreciate your time this evening, and hopefully that this is great information for the buyers. I know that they'll appreciate that. And so anybody who's watching, appreciate you guys jumping on with us, and definitely reach out to Brad and Stephanie and let them help you. And we look forward to working with any of you. And please, if you got any question, no matter big or small, reach out to us, and we're happy to help you. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.